The title is Emotions, How to Channel Your Emotions to Creativity. Hi, my name is Aisha Kapadia, and I'm here to talk to you at the Ministry of New Take 5 session about how to channel your emotions into creativity. Um, here's a little introduction about myself. We'll just give it a few minutes and wait for more people to come in. Also, thank you so much for coming for this Take 5. It's going to be fun. I'm a visual artist from Bombay, and I've been working independently for the past 9 years. And I work with illustration, art direction, creative consulting, and anything to do with art and craft, really. My relationship with this field has been really, really nice. I mean, I've been an artist all my life. I've been doing art ever since I can remember. And over the years, I've learned how to sort of put myself into my work, even if it's commercial work. I think that's the real trick and method to sort of make sure your work has an identity of its own. And I'm going to take you through it in this Take 5 session. All right, so let me begin. Also, if you have any questions at any point, please feel free to leave it in the comment section. I'm reading all of it. And again, thanks for coming for this Take 5 session. So, the reason why I feel like it's important to talk about emotions and creative work is because most of the times we're not used to embracing our emotions, and that's the real message here, that we need to embrace all your emotions and not mask them or hide them. Emotions are your visitors. Emotions are visitors in your mind, and we just need to let them happen to you. Here's a quote that I want to read out and then get into explaining, which is intensity comes in the form of cognitive intensity, those aspects of thinking and processing information that all gifted individuals use to problem solve. What this means is when we have these feelings and emotions and they're really intense and sometimes they ruin your day, what you need to do is you need to savor it and really park it in some part of your mind or brain or heart and use it as a resource later on in your creative work, because only you felt those emotions the way you feel it. Nobody else has felt it in that way, and only you can make sense of that emotion in the way you do, in the way you understand it. And once you sort of dwell in that thought for a little bit, you can use that information to problem solve, whether it's your creative work or the way you deal with people or the way you deal with more emotions coming in or the way you deal with your relationships. All that information that's happening while you're dealing with any kind of emotion is very, very useful information that can help you problem solve any aspect in your life. And here's how. So there's one important question that you need to answer, which is, are you having your emotions or are your emotions having you? All right. So the difference between you having your emotions is, are you able to recognize that you are happy right now, that you are sad right now, that you're grumpy or crabby or having a bad day? Are you able to recognize and allow it to happen to you? Or are your emotions having you? Which means, are you allowing, bad news, happy news to sort of take over your cognitive understanding completely, and sort of it just like it traps you in its being and you're not able to make sense of it. So one way to look at it is, what are the triggers? Exactly, thanks. What are the triggers? What makes you go? What makes you not go? Like, what happens when you're having your emotions? It's always good to understand what emotions you're going through while you're going through it, so that you're able to make mental notes about how you react to certain triggers, and you know how you're going to behave in certain situations. The next point is, response versus react. This is a very important point, and this is something I've had to learn over the years, which is, do you respond to what's happening to you, or are you reacting? The difference between response and reaction is, response is when you're understanding the situation, you're calculating the way you want to respond to it. You calculate how much of it you want to absorb emotionally, you calculate how much of your energy you want to give to it, and that's a response, a calculative response to an emotion or a stimulus that's coming towards you. Versus a reaction is when you just react without thinking, I think when we're younger, we don't understand the difference and we're reacting to most things around us, which is great because that's also a learning. But I've learned as I grew older that just reacting to things and triggers that are happening to me was not healthy. And it's great to be able to just take a step back, take a deep breath in, understand what is happening around you, understand how you're feeling at that moment, understand if you even want to react to the situation, if you even want to give your energy to the situation, and respond accordingly. Sometimes we don't have the energy to give, and we push ourselves to give the energy because we're trained to be givers, but we're not trained to be givers to ourselves. And I feel like that is an important takeaway here within the response versus react point, which is you need to be a giver to yourself also and fill your own emotional cup, without which you're not going to be able to respond or react fully to anything coming at you. So that is response versus react. Moving on to the next point, which is confident in your own body. How many of us are really confident in our own body? And what I mean by confident in your own body is not our physical body, but also mentally. Are you confident in your mind? That is super, super important. I feel like we don't talk about this enough. We don't talk about this point enough. Yes, we're talking about body image, and a lot of people are responding positively to how people feel in the body that they have. But what about our mind? How do we feel in the mind that we have? Are we talking about this? And there's no way to show it physically, because being confident in your own body is a conversation you can have because it's a physical structure. But how do you put visuals, or how do you make it how do you make your emotions and feelings tangible? And one of the ways to do it is to talk about it. The other way to do it is to think about it in your own head. Even if you're the only one who understands what's happening in your head, that's okay. Because we all have our own experiences, we're all going through our own ways of understanding, grappling with the world. So yeah, are you confident in your mind? Are you confident in your body? Another point about being confident in your body is that our bodies have intelligence, and if you just sit with your body for a bit, it tells you what it needs, what you need to do, how you need to react. Our body knows before we do. One way to really truly tap into this is, however cliched it sounds, is meditation. And meditation is ideally just like sitting with yourself in silence and breathing, really. Even if you're not doing the, breathe in, breathe out 5 times, even if you're just sitting with yourself, understanding what's going on in your head, listening to your thoughts, talking to yourself, checking the way you talk to yourself. That's a very important point. Make sure that the language you use with yourself is super, super encouraging, super positive, super loving. It's so important to talk to yourself lovingly. We're so used to people talking us down and, not being so encouraging, that slowly gets into becoming the voice in your head. And once you realize that, you have to put in hard work to reverse engineer all of that, and be super loving to yourself in your head, super encouraging, There's a difference between arrogance and showing love to yourself in your brain. I don't know what to say about the arrogant part, but like, just be nice to yourself overall, because you're the only one doing it for you mainly, and your opinion about yourself matters more than what other people are saying about you, because only you've gone through all the emotions that you've gone through, only you've felt all the feelings that you felt. These are very, very deep and private and personal things, your feelings and emotions. And I don't know why it's not common culture to talk about how we're feeling truly, not talk about what other people think they want us to talk about, but truly talking about our feelings as is. If you're having a shitty day, talk about having a shitty day as is. And if you're having a great day, talk about having a great day as is. We need to make vulnerability normal, because vulnerability is your superpower, and being able to be truly honest and vulnerable and open, and to have people around you who let you be that way, is a superpower. It's what makes your work yours. And to be able to tap into all this information that we are discussing right now, we'll do a recap in the end, but to be able to tap into all this information that we're discussing right now is what makes your voice unique. The way you respond to things makes your response unique. I got derailed, but like, coming back to being confident in your own body and mind, I guess you get the point about how it's super important to be nice to yourself in your own brain, to listen to your body, because it knows what it needs before you do. So it's very important to be silent and quiet with yourself, to be able to read the signs of your body, to be able to read the signs of your mind, and understand what it needs from you. Next point. Managing other people's expectations versus your own. All of this that we're discussing right now has no meaning if we cannot distinguish our own expectations versus what other people expect from us. Growing up in India, in a society, as a woman, we've all faced this, right? Like, we all know that there are certain expectations of the society from us, that we have to behave a certain way, dress a certain way, speak a certain way, yada, yada, yada. Those are people's expectations of us. What are our own expectations of ourselves? Do they match people's expectations from us, or are they our own expectations? What are these expectations? It's super important to know what your own expectations are of yourself. And we start building these expectations of ourselves from a very young age, which is why it's really important for children to be allowed to express themselves freely. That's a whole other topic. But coming back to having your own expectations, how many of you know what your own expectations are from yourself? I mean, I've always known what expectations I've had from myself from a very young age, because of the kind of literature, music, movies, people that I was exposed to. I think I borrowed and sort of made a little box in my head with things that I like, things that I want to grow up to become, person that I want to grow up to become. I started collecting all this information in my head, and that information became my expectations of me, but they never matched my environment's expectations of me. And I think that was the most confusing part. And I feel like most of us have been there. Have you been in a place where what you expect from yourself doesn't match what other people expect from you? And sometimes it's so confusing. Thank you, Devika, for that question. I'm going to get to it in a bit. Where was I? Yes, expectations. And then you realize that having your own expectations of yourself gives you, like, fulfilling these expectations gives you more pleasure than sort of proving somebody else right or wrong. Um, and coming to your question, how do I continue to find inspiration during lockdown at a time when I have so many other worries, and we all have so many other worries? I think that's the crux of this conversation right now, which is that once you know what's happening emotionally, I mean, we're all going through like a plethora of emotions right now, right from stress, anxiety, confusion, because we don't know what's coming next. We don't know how we're going to build our world next. We don't know whether we're going to go back to office. We don't know what normal means anymore. We don't know what kind of food we're going to eat. We don't know if we're meeting our friends. We don't know anything. But it's okay, because we don't know and nobody knows. And if we just accept the truth as what it is, and understand that stress and anxiety is not going to solve any problems, and the world needs less negative energy and less stressed out people, and the one way we can balance that is that when you have this understanding of where your feelings are, where your emotions are, you know where your head's at, and you can emit that kind of peaceful energy from the knowing that you have, from this cognitive intelligence, this information that you've stored in your brain while you were checking yourself, when you talked to yourself, while you were checking yourself, when you had a wave of an emotion. And an important thing to understand about emotions is that they come and go. They're not permanent. They're never going to stay. So if you're anxious right now, you're not going to remain anxious forever. It's going to go at some point. So what is the thing that makes that anxiety go away? Do more of that and keep that kind of energy activated for yourself. And yeah, I mean, I feel like living in the moment right now, however cliched it sounds, living in the moment, understanding that whatever I have around me right now is the best that I can have around me at this current moment. How can I do with what I have right now? I think that's what keeps me going. And also an understanding of the fact that stress and anxiety is not going to help anyhow. So there's no point wasting time or energy over that. And I just like train myself to be happy. Understand this, and this is something I've learned and realized to myself, which is that happiness is a choice. You have to choose. I mean, sure, you feel happy when you look at happy things and meet happy people and pet a dog and babies and like just general happy things. When you listen to happy music, you feel happy. But it's also a choice to remain happy, or to be happy, or to be optimistic, or to be positive. It's a choice you make with yourself every single day. And that is an important learning that has helped me to remain calm, positive, creative throughout these confusing times. And I also use my creativity as a tool to help me remain sane and calm, because if I can express myself through whatever medium, whether it's running or drawing or painting or singing or skipping or cooking, whatever it is for you, I feel like you should do it, and you should do more of it, because those are the triggers that make your anxiety go away, that makes your stress go away, that makes you happy. And those are the choices you're making for yourself to remain happy and excited. So do more of that. Just closing the point about managing other people's expectations versus your own, I think we all know what the answer is, and try to fight for living up to your own expectations, because people really don't care whether you match their expectations or not. They don't really care about the fact that you're doing what they think you should do. So just focus and fight and focus for what you want from yourself, because you're living with yourself at the end of the day, and you need to know that like living up to your own idea of yourself is way more important. Living in the moment and still continuing to keep expectations from us, how do you balance that? As sometimes expectations overwhelm us. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Expectations can overwhelm us for sure. I mean, but being aware of reality and being aware of where you are and what you have around you, and how can you do the best with what you have. I feel like that's one way to look at it, and understand that we're kind of like plants. There's opportunity to grow when you water yourself day by day. Things are not going to happen instantly. Good things take time to happen. So understand that if you do something today towards eventually meeting the bigger expectation that you want, it's a step towards achieving it. And things happen step by step, day by day, slowly. It all accumulates and grows into the bigger vision that you have for yourself. So I guess just understanding that it's a process. Everything's a process. Even choosing happiness or understanding your mind or understanding your feelings and emotions, it's all a process. Nothing happens overnight. And I feel like the rewards are sweeter when it's a process, because it's matured over time, it's grown over time. You've seen this process happen, you've seen yourself through it, and then when you eventually reach the place you want to reach, which can be anything, I feel like the reward or the satisfaction of reaching that place is much sweeter than just having everything instantly. I hope I've answered your question, Yash. Moving on to the next point, which is, and which beautifully joins into this point, which is make fear your friend. This, I think I'll be repeating myself if I talk about, how to deal with anxiety and stress. But yes, make fear your friend. And one way to make fear your friend is to approach it with curiosity. Every time you feel anxious or scared to do something, especially a new project, or if you're a singer and you've written a song and you don't want to share it with anyone, and you're really scared and anxious and super afraid of what people are going to think, I feel like a trick that has worked for me is to approach fear with curiosity. Ask yourself, what's going to happen if you upload this new song that you wrote, or what's going to happen if you put out this new artwork that you've done, or what's going to happen, if you're curious about these kind of responses, as opposed to, oh my god, people are going to hate this and no one's going to like it, yada. If there's an equal chance of people not liking it, there's an equal chance of people liking it. So how about, and there's only one way to find out, so how about we approach fear with curiosity and find out whether things work for you, don't work for you, people like what you're making, don't like what you're making. If they like it, great, do more of it. If you like it, if you felt good, do more of it. If you didn't, then you know what went wrong and how to approach it differently the next time. So either ways, it's good for you, because either you'll have learned what you've done right, or you'll have learned what needs more improvement, and that way you'll just get better and better at it. My new series of illustrations, the black and white illustrations that I do on my Instagram, honestly, the only reason I do it is because I wanted to explore how I feel about imperfection. I wanted to explore whether I'm okay if the lines are not perfect. I wanted to explore my bravery and see if I'm okay just putting out a raw thought, which is so raw and so personal, but I'm putting it out there and I'm sharing it because why not? I mean, what's there to be afraid about? It's not a monster. These are thoughts. We are people. We're eventually all made out of the same material, stardust and magic and all of that. And what's the worst that can happen? I'm sure that only good things come out of things that you do with a good intention. So yeah, I want to encourage you to make fear your friend and approach your fear with curiosity. Wouldn't it be fun to know? Like how someone would react to something that's so private to you and so personal to you, if you want to put it out there as creative work, or just as a thought, or writing, or any kind of expression that you like to indulge in. Wouldn't it be fun to know how people react to it? And also remember that if you felt a certain way, there's someone else who's felt that same emotion too, maybe in a different degree, maybe more or less, but they felt it. And if they see your work and it makes their day better, I mean, there's this, it's just a nice feeling to know that somebody connects with your work and they feel better because they've seen or been able to appreciate your vulnerability and your vulnerable expressions. So yes, approach your fear with curiosity. Coming to the next point, which is exercising your muscle of intuition. This point ties back to being comfortable in your own body and mind. And what I mean by exercising your muscle of intuition is the fact that, you know how we need to exercise our bodies to keep it fit, but we need to exercise every day, right? Your body needs that kind of movement and exercise every day regularly so that it remains healthy, and it needs that consistency of exercise. In the same way, our mind and our intuition needs to be exercised too. It's like an invisible muscle. Your intuition is like an invisible muscle, and we need to be able to tap into our intuition to be able to listen to what it's trying to tell you, because your intuition is strong. We're all animals, and all animals have a natural instinct, natural intuition, which we were never taught to listen to. We're so far away from it. Exactly, Sahil, like a daily creative workout. We're so far away from listening to our intuitions that we have to re-engineer, or like really work hard into strengthening our invisible muscle of intuition, because our intuition is that little magic voice that knows what you need. It knows what you need to do, how you need to do it. Every time you feel confused, your intuition always has the answer. The trick is to learn how to listen to your intuition. For me personally, it's come from spending a lot of time with myself in my head, thinking about things, overthinking things, playing with my imaginary world, creating an imaginary world, and it's really helped me listen to or be connected with my internal world, which then reflects in my external world, because I tap into all these conversations that I've had with myself, and I use these personal conversations in my creative work, whether it's commercial work or personal work. My personal work, I'm exploring these conversations through different mediums and through different drawing styles and materials. And in my commercial work, I'm using that information and these imaginary worlds that I've built for myself. I'm using it to be able to create a distinct narrative for brands, which is great at a time when every brand wants to stand out from the next. And yes, brands and commercial work have come with their own guidelines, but we're fighting visual clutter in today's day and age, specifically talking about visual art. We're fighting visual clutter, and the more unique your voice is, the better it's going to stand out with everybody else's work put side by side. And it's important to be able to be in touch with your internal world so that you can use it in your external world. I need to stop saying that. Coming to my last point, which is, what does the future of art look like? This is the question I want to put out for all of you right now. Everybody who's watching, I'm so curious to know what you think the future of art looks like, because for me, the future of art is what we're building right now. We are building it. Nobody knows what the future of art is going to look like, and that's why it's a great space to be in, because we're building it as we speak. We're making the future of art right now as we speak, and it's so important to influence the makers of the future of art with the idea that it's okay to tap into your emotions. It's your superpower to know how you're feeling, to be able to have control over your feelings. It's your superpower to be vulnerable. Because right now, what we all need is empathy. We need huge amounts of empathy with each other. I'm just talking from a personal, like person to person point of view. But even as brands and even within commercial work, we need to recognize that at the end of the day, we're all human beings. We all feel stress. We all feel anxiety. We all feel sadness. We all feel joy. We all feel excitement. We all feel happiness. And we've all been there. And we're all connected through these emotions. And I'm not going to feel nice if you're not feeling nice. So, as a brand, or as a communication designer, or as an artist, or as in any profession or in any field, how can you make somebody else's life better? What are you doing today to make it better? And it doesn't have to be something ginormous. It can be a small thing. I mean, even being open and honest about your feelings and emotions is super brave and can make a huge difference to somebody else's life. You and you won't even know it. So yeah, what does the future of art look like to you? Because you're creating it right now, and the quality of your thoughts and the quality of the way you talk to yourself really defines how you're going to be talking to other people through your work. And that's why it's super important to have a healthy voice, a healthy relationship with your internal world, to be able to express that externally in your work. Yes, Marley said so true. Art can be and is the accelerator of change. Absolutely, because everybody can relate to art. Feelings and emotions as human beings is something that we can't really escape. It's going to happen. It comes and it goes, and it's beautiful if you learn how to ride those waves. It's really beautiful. I love spending time just feeling these deep emotions because there's so much information hidden in it. There's so much I use it for to build these like magical fantasy worlds in my head. And then when I get a brief to work on for a client or a project, I have all this magic to tap into, to use in this work. And I feel like that's what sets my work apart, and that's what can set your work apart. And I think it's beautiful when we all have our individual landscapes out there for people to see and respond to, because we'll all relate to it in some way or the other, and we'll all be able to feel comforted by the fact that, hey, I'm not alone in this feeling, or hey, I'm not alone in this emotion, and it's not that terrible, and it's not only happening to me. It's happening to all of us together as a unit. We're all going through what we're going through right now, and we need to learn how to be there for each other. And I feel like we can't do that until we learn how to be there for ourselves first. That's the most important relationship to have. And there's another quote by James Baldwin that I would like to read for you. Does anyone have any questions about everything we've been talking about? I feel like it's been a huge mix of a lot of talk about emotions and feelings and vulnerability. But I'm not sure how you feel about these things. How do you feel about your emotions? How do you feel about your relationship with your vulnerability? Okay, I'm going to get to this quote, which is, the precise role of the artist then is to illuminate that darkness, blaze roads through that vast forest, so that we will not in all our doing lose sight of its purpose, which is after all to make the world a more human dwelling place. I feel like this quote encapsulates what we've been trying to talk about in this session beautifully. Because even if you talk about consumerism or commercial work, we're selling things to human beings to use as human beings. There needs to be some kind of empathy in everything we do. We need to be able to make the world a more caring and loving space. And this is not, I'm not trying to be idealistic here. This has to be a realistic vision for all of us. Manali has a question. How does one not succumb to others' thought process and keep up with their own? This is a tough one. I can draw from my own personal experience. Thank you for your question. This is a super relevant question because, sometimes we all succumb to others' thought processes. We're so exposed to how other people are doing things in their life right now. We're so exposed to different forms of art and culture and voices that we don't know what our own voice is anymore. But that's when all these tricks come into place. When you ask yourself, am I comfortable in my own body? Am I comfortable in my own mind? Exercising your muscle of intuition, sitting with yourself, meditating. This word has been used a lot, but what I truly mean by meditating is sitting with yourself, understanding where you're at. Just take stock of yourself, just like put your phone away and take stock of yourself. How are you feeling right now? And I tend to do that a lot, just take stock of my emotions and be comfortable with it. And honestly, we all succumb to others' thought processes. We've all been there. But then I feel like for me, there's been a niggling internal voice which is stronger, and I tend to listen to it. I feel like that's just what the difference is. Just listen to your intuition, Manali. I feel like you already know what needs to be done and what to do. You just have to listen to that voice and be brave enough to follow through with it, because you never know how it's going to help someone else or how you're going to feel through it. And don't you think it's more fun to have a voice of your own and have a unique take to something, or have your own individual response to something, as opposed to being just a voice in the crowd? I think it's more fun to see what that would look like. And maybe, like we discussed earlier, you can approach your fear with curiosity, replace fear with curiosity, and be curious about what it's like to follow through your thought process, follow with your own voice, and see where it takes you. I'm going to go to the next question. Thanks, Rishabh, for your question. What are your go-to things to let out a certain sense of emotions which you feel you have been messing around for a while in your head, apart from an outlet in your art, which I absolutely love? Thanks, Rish. Well, art is my go-to outlet for releasing all my emotions. It's a little bit like peeing, like you feel it and then you let it out, and then it's out and it's done with, and I can move on. I've emptied everything in my head, and I can move on to other things. So it mainly is art, but I feel like talking to friends, you would know, talking to friends and listening to music. Music is great. Music is one way. Is something that I tend to lose myself in, to be able to make sense of the emotions which I'm feeling, because sometimes music expresses that emotions better than any words or art or color can, and sometimes art and color can express an emotion better than music can, which is why I also feel like art and music go together hand in hand. But apart from that, just talking. Talk to your friends, talk to people that you trust, talk to people who have your best interest in mind, talk to people who will remind you of how amazing you are as a person, and just talk to people who you care about, and they will help you make sense of your emotions sometimes. You know how when you're talking to your friend, and your friend has a problem and you know exactly what they need to do, and you have like the perfect advice to give them, but when it comes to, I don't know, this happens to me, does this happen to you guys? When it comes to me, I sometimes do not know what to do. I have absolutely no idea, and that's when I go to my best friends, and they know exactly what I need to hear, because I've told that to them at some point. but yeah, having a good set of people around you is super helpful in looking after your emotions and looking after your feelings. um, and yeah, I'm all about emotions and feelings and feeling them and drawing about it, writing about it, talking about it, documenting it. I love documenting my feelings because I like to see the evolution. How I feel about something right now is definitely not how I felt about it a couple of years ago, and is definitely not how I felt about it before that. Um, and I love to see the growth of my response to certain things, the way I react to certain things. I love to see that I've been able to make space for energy to do better things, to help people, maybe, I hope. But to make place for love, really. And to make place for love uh, is to be able to truly understand and be honest with how you're feeling at the current moment. And I really hope that you can make space for love too. Have you guys had any experiences with like being able to express your emotions within your work, or to be able to channel that kind of energy into your creative work? I would love to know if any of you have been able to, or do you use your emotions in your work on a regular basis? I would love to know if any of you do that. Thanks, Trish. Um, and just generally chat about how everybody, let's do an emotional check-in. How's everybody feeling right now? How's everybody, do you know what kind of emotion you're going through right now currently on this Tuesday, very bright Tuesday evening? If you're tuning in from Bombay, you know that today has been exceptionally bright, and it's super sunny today because it's been super gloomy all throughout. So I'm really happy to see the sun today. That's where I'm at emotionally. I'm just happy and sunny and overjoyed. I'm super excited to do this talk with this session with Ministry of New. I really miss going to Ministry of New and all the sunlight in the workroom over there, and just like meeting all the people, working with people around me. I do miss that. I do miss the good vibes at Ministry also. How many of you have been there? How many of you have been to Ministry of New? I don't know if you guys have. Ooh, okay. I see people. Sunny in Hyderabad too. That's great. It's amazing. Do you like the sun? Do you like it being sunny in Hyderabad? Someone's G just feeling happy. Mansi ma'am is feeling super happy to see me. Oshkosh Paper Design says, it always shows up in my work. When I'm calm, my art is minimal. When I'm upset or brooding, my art is super intricate and submersible. That is so true. That's exactly what happens with me. That your internal world reflects in your external world, and it definitely always shows up, which is why especially when we're on shoot and on set. Thanks for sharing that, Oshkosh Paper Design. Especially when I'm on set, I like to make sure that everybody's happy and we have like happy music. This is why if any of you have been on any kind of shoot, this is why people play like upbeat music on the set, because they want to keep the energy up, people happy, because it truly reflects in the work. And this is why it's super important to have a strong grasp over your emotions and feelings, because it reflects in everything that you do. It reflects in how you deal with people. It reflects in your relationships that you have with people. It reflects in the quality of conversations that you have with people. And talking on a more professional note, it reflects in the kind of thought processes and energy that you're putting into your work. As a designer, as an artist, you have the responsibility of making sure your work carries an energy that is useful and helpful. Yes, Sahil says, good vibes. create great memories and translate to amazing work. That is so true. Sahil is an amazing photographer who I've had the pleasure of working on for 2 days, exactly 2 days. And yeah, I remember we played some really good music on set because it reflects in the way you use your brain, the conversations you have with yourself in your head, which eventually translates in the kind of work you do. Yes, please check out the Ministry of New 80s playlist on Spotify. I feel like Marlies has the really yummy taste in music, and I've had the pleasure of enjoying that with her over food and wine as well. And music has a way of truly uplifting your spirits. Music, some kind of like nice aroma around you, good food, good people, just self-care things that make you happy. If this becomes an everyday practice, you make sure that you remain in a good space, in a healthy space, and that has the ability to reflect in your work. Oh, Marlies, thanks. Manognya says that you're really keen on your music. I like the Malham Spotify playlist also. Manognya, I should point out that I also run a page called Contracts for Creators and Malham Supply. Contracts for Creators is a website that provides free contract templates for all kinds of creatives. And Manognya is a co-founder with us. Manognya and Mihir and myself run this page called Contracts for Creators. And Manognya is a genius lawyer on board who helps put all the contracts together. Also, I think this session is going to end soon because Instagram Live goes off in an hour. So I'm just going to keep talking until it goes off on its own. Thank you so much for coming for this session. I hope you have way more than 5 takeaways from this talk, and I hope it's helped you in some way, and I hope it's helped to brighten your day in some way. And I would love to hear from you if you have any kind of feedback or suggestions, if you have any more questions regarding how to channel your emotions into your creative work. You can reach me at Comet Choose on Instagram, and I hope you also get to use Contracts for Creators. It's a useful tool that Manognya, Mihir and I created to help the creative community be able to stand up on their own feet and be empowered, so that they can take power in their own hands and not be afraid of contracts, and not be afraid of the legalities that surround contracts, and to be able to educate ourselves about what goes into a contract, or basically just to empower yourself as a designer. Malham, I'll talk about Malham another time. But thank you so much for coming to this session. Thank you, Marlies, and thank you, Ministry of New, for this opportunity to share my process with the yummy people who have joined in, and thanks for all the support. I hope you have a very, very, very lovely evening. I think I'm going to sign off now, unless I think we have a couple of minutes. Does anybody want to chat about anything? Does anybody have any more questions? Is anybody drinking coffee? I'm going to take a sip of the coffee right now. But thank you. And remember that emotions are your friends and vulnerability is your superpower. Okay, yes, I remember to save this video. Thank you so much. I'm going to log out now. Bye. Have a good Tuesday and the rest of the week.